All right. Hello, Justin, and hello, everyone. Welcome to Responsible Tech Talks.
How are you today? I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I am very thrilled to have you here, Justin. I am going to spend a moment up front just kind of getting folks a little bit of background as to what you do, but I definitely want to hear from you as well about that because honestly, you have such a robust set of activities that you're engaged in, lots of hats that you're wearing. So definitely want to hear more about that from you. But just to get things going, folks, Dr. Justin Rose has graced us today on this Responsible Tech Talk, the last one of the year. He really is a jack of all trades, and we connected because of his involvement with the trades and technology. So it's a really interesting space that Justin is in because we often hear about tech and trades as these like diametrically opposed, kind of realms, but Justin is really spanning both of those. He is an innovator, AI innovator in residence for the North Carolina Community College system. He's really digging into AI policy, governance, and ethics, making sure those really map to the real world, which is a very much a shared interest between him, myself, and I know many of you. He's developing curricula and initiatives, including something called the Applied Skill Labs. I would love to hear more about that. He's a workflow and workforce development expert, director of construction and industrial technology at Pitt Community College, and founder and CEO for his own business, Landing Place Solutions LLC. Whew, see, I said it was a lot. Justin, what did I miss? What did I mischaracterize? And how would you introduce yourself?
Well, father of four as well, so I don't sleep much, but when I do, I get the most out of it. But yeah, that's a great introduction. I really appreciate that. So I came up in the trades. I grew up in probably one of the most rural counties in the nation, probably one of the most tax burden, 50% tax burden in the nation. And so I grew up very rural, very ingrained in scratching kind of a way out of life. You had to pick up multiple skills. You had to really find a way to be kind of a MacGyver. Like I said, jack of all trades is something I've heard my whole life. I grew up in welding, and uh, so went to college. Got my undergrad in business administration, and went right back into the trades in welding, and then into management. And so for the last 12 years, I fell into education. Really, the last 12 years, I've been in education, a director in industrial training and technology. And in 2022, with some of the work I was doing with small business, actually founded Landing Place Solutions LLC, became a SBC, which is Small Business Center Guest Counselor for the state of North Carolina. I've been doing that. I've also gone back to my alma mater, and I'm a business professor where I teach business leadership, conflict resolution, and project management through an AI augmentation. And so, really, at this point, like you were saying, uh, during the day, I'm a director over in construction programs. Then I do the consulting piece as well. And then I'm a professor. So, really, every bit of my life outside of family is education. And with that, I've found a way to include AI, literacy, fluency, augmentation in every one of those aspects. And so, literally, every day for me is living and breathing AI and education. And a lot of that, as you're saying, is really 50% of what I do in that has really evolved into ethical, responsible, and really profitable, because the main reason we're using any type of tool is to be able to earn a living or to achieve a goal. But all of that with the student or the small business or the business in mind, and how they can be successful, and bringing that back to how can I use AI to have a small business succeed to fund their family, or a business succeed to be able to provide for their workforce, or a AI to replace a task that could be potentially dangerous so someone comes home safe. And so, like you said, there's a lot of spinning plates. That's brought me into the AI Innovator in Residence with the community college system, where I act as a resource and an innovator in trying to find how to connect AI to andragogy, pedagogy, and how to put it in the classroom, but then as well create training tools so that way the staff and faculty of our college system in North Carolina can also rise in AI fluency.
There is so much to unpack in that introduction, and I cannot wait to get into it. I think one place I'd love to start is your perspective and background in the trades. That's, as you say, how you kind of came up in the working world. How do you think that that has influenced how you approach AI or education, or just what is the value that you have found that you draw from that background?
And I love that you asked that question because a lot of people don't look at it that way. With AI, it's such a transformative tool because it really has the potential to touch everything. Microsoft Word can't do that. Your calculator can't do that. And so in the trades, how I look at it, growing up with some of the work we did, safety was right out the gate. You didn't do anything unless it was safe, because when you're working with torches, gases, sharp tools, obviously that has a permanent effect, and misuse of that could very easily have lifelong changes with without going into it, loss of life and limb. And so that actually has a safety mindset has actually been very fundamental in AI safety. And what I tell people is more than outside of medical, what I find is AI adopters in the skilled trades already go into it with such a skeptical, measure twice, cut once mindset
Mm.
and a safety mindset that you don't really have to teach that as much. Most of what you're teaching is how to apply it. And so that's great because most of the time in the trades you have the safety piece, and then part of that safety piece is how can I make sure my workforce gets home safe. And so when I talk about we have the safe and ethical use of AI, but then I get into responsible AI, that understanding is already there because it's how do we operate machinery responsibly, how do we use or build these systems in a way that's environmentally mindful, are we being good stewards? And so really AI is just another tool in the toolkit there. And so another thing to look at is, I know that one of the misconceptions with skilled trades is, well, you're just on your tools, you don't use technology, you're probably bad at computers, when really some of the most advanced technology I've seen in my lifetime has been in the trades with meters that are able to read very minute charges and electric currents to tools that you actually use wind to gauge things, that can read the slightest breeze from an HVAC duct. And so some of the most advanced technology has actually been in the trades. And so there's that misconception. And I think it's because of how manual it is. But in that as well, on the responsible side, is I work across multiple industries. And the thing I hate to see that really just breaks my heart is when a company chooses to lay off staff for AI rather than figure out how they could take their existing staff and augment them with AI, which obviously is going to have better returns in the future. We've seen that. I'm not going to name the companies, but we've seen that over the last 2 years. In the skilled trades, the only really fear you have now is really in robotics. And robotics just don't have the dexterity to do what we can. They can't judge down to the level of torquing something or how much pressure you need to unscrew a screw really like we can. And so there's not going to be as much disruption, say, as with transcription or things like that. And so that mindset really helps in the skilled trades when you're looking at adoption, because it allows us to really say this is just another tool like a hammer or a multimeter or something like that that's going to come in. It's going to help you with calculations. It's going to help you with understanding really advanced building codes. It's going to help you be able to really expedite some things. And the main thing we have to remind, really the big disconnect there, is because it doesn't have a saw blade or a flame
Mm.
to it, it can be easier to, throw something in without understanding. So really on the trade side, what I see a lot of what we have to teach outside of the application is that security mindset.
This is really fascinating because from a user research UX point of view and someone who approaches AI with a human-centered lens, it sounds like in the skilled trades, this is already they've already been primed to think in that way because they're already thinking about protecting the humans and the external impacts on the environment and other systems. So it sounds like you just have a natural inclination to think in this way. I'm curious to know a little bit more about how you are seeing, you talked about AI and the advanced technologies that are in skilled trades, and they're becoming more prominent. I'm also wondering if you see more people turning to the trades as a source of income as AI causes disruption in other areas. But what should people expect when making that transition? Because as you say, there's some myths out there that it's not very technical, that they might not have to learn some of these AI skills or other types of skills. What should people be prepared for? Or do you not see that shift toward the trades in the same way that I described?
I do see it, and I believe Jeffrey Hennett, the grandfather of AI, his household name probably at this point. His recent comments were, if you want to get rich off of AI, go be a plumber.
Mm.
And it's really it's true, because there's not going to be a lot of immediate disruption in the trades, and there are certain telecommunication companies out there that are already using not just AI but augmented reality as well to strengthen their technicians. And to borrow from the last question and into this one of the tasks that I had to do a lot growing up was agricultural, and they're called grain elevators. And it's essentially, if you've ever gone by a farm and you see those big round structures, that's where they store the grain. And so there's a process on how you have to dry that. And part of the process is when the trucks come from the field and dump, it goes up a conveyor, and then it delegates it to its different bin. That's a lot of moving parts, and they break. And so a regular task of mine was having to climb 100 or so feet up a ladder to work on a piece that's as big as my fist, because everything relied on it. And I can't tell you how many times I forgot a piece in the ground and I had to go back down and back up. It's not like you just have a magic bucket there. And so, two, growing up, my Nokia didn't take video like my iPhone does. And so you had to document things. If you needed a picture, you actually had to take a camera and take pictures. And so you see how long that takes to develop and do paperwork. Whereas now, if I had to do that in today, I would have an SOP that ChatGPT helped me write. And that SOP would have everything I need to consider before climbing that tower. That way I only have to do it one time. I could use Meta and say the Wayfarer glasses, to where if somebody calls me on my way up, I can answer, have my hands on that ladder so I don't have to worry about falling or missing the phone call. I can have a conversation, and then while I'm doing the repairs, I can have those glasses record what I'm doing and have Meta or Gemini later write the report in a detail that I would not have remembered. And then I have video, I have images, I have a detailed report, and even help sourcing parts without having to take my hands off my tools or hands off the ladder. And I did it safely, safer than if I was using a cell phone. And so to be able to apply that, we're maybe, again, really to the level of what I'm talking, the only other industry really is, medical. And really, you don't want your doctor getting instructions via meta glasses while you're doing open heart surgery. So they're still restricted a lot on that. To whereas now you can benefit in the trades. One, by going into the trades, there's more work. We're short 500,000 technicians right now. And we're not even really into the great retirement that's coming in the next few years, where these technicians are aging out. And so how that that scenario I just gave you really benefits junior techs. And what we're doing here at Pitt Community College and what I'm doing in, consulting with Landing Place Solutions is, how can I take a technician who has 30, 35 years of experience? They know more than the book does. They've lived it. They could probably write multiple books, but they don't have the time or the confidence to write a book. They don't want to deal with paperwork, but they don't want to be in the field either. How can I take a technician like that, who's a master tech, have AI help them create manuals and SOPs, but then extend their career by 5 to 10 years by taking them out of the field, teaching them how to use, the Oculus or some type of augmented tool, to where when a junior tech runs into a problem that's not in the textbook or they've never seen before, they can contact that master tech. He can see what they see, or she can see what they see, walk them through it in a way to where the students' hands are free. They're getting visual backing and auditory backing, and then they're learning as they go. And then they're able to work with the master tech to create an SOP for that later, return to office. Whereas right now, even that master tech could say, I've done my due diligence, I don't know what to do about it, but I'm retiring. And then you've lost 35 years. You think about, 500,000 positions. If we lost another 500,000 in the great retirement, how many hours and years of knowledge we would lose because they just don't have the ability to pass it down. And so, yes, becoming a plumber, HVAC, electric, it's a good paying job. That's not a myth. It is a great career, especially if you're really good at it. Having AI fluency on top of that, using something like the G3 method, which is, really grounding, guiding, and graduating, that we're working on in the innovators, and having somebody come from AI compliant to AI fluent as a technician, you're going to be setting the tone in the trades in the coming years. And you're really going to be seen as a champion, even as a junior tech in your organization, because by the time the organization catches up to the need for AI, you're already there and you're able to help. And so there's great potential for a lucrative career in the trades and with AI.
This is so fascinating because you're describing AI as a partner, yes, but also a connection point to bridging some experiential, generational, gaps, rather than, as you said, which you said breaks your heart, is to see AI be seen as a replacement for humans. What I heard you describe is really connecting people together, leveraging expertise, and building up kind of that fluency to help make things safer, more, and approach these tasks more reliably. So it's a really nice example. I'm curious, do you, when you said it breaks your heart that folks might not see that relationship, what do you tell people when you try to convince them that, no, AI really is a partner? I'm just curious, because a lot of folks don't see it that way.
Well, to add another layer to kind of the confused background I have, I'm also, I grew up surfing. I love surfing. I don't do much anymore. And I've surfed, a wide variety of locations. I've been very fortunate to do that. And what I tell people is, it's probably the best analogy, because your AI innovation, to begin with, is like the waves that are rolling in. You've got bigger waves that come in sets. You've got smaller waves. But if you're too afraid to get in the water, or you don't like getting wet, you're never going to catch one, and you're going to miss out. And eventually, once you leave the beach, you may regret that you didn't have the experience. And so the thing is a lot of it just starts with dipping your toe in there. And so it could be as easy as asking Claude via a picture of what's in your fridge to tell you what you can make for dinner. You just have to start using it. And so what I tell people is, you're going to be bad at it. You're going to be bad at public speaking. You're going to be bad at yoga. You're going to, anything you do, you're going to be bad at the beginning, but you're going to get better. And so it really looks like getting in the water, learning how to swim. It's going to be a slow process, but once you start catching those waves, you're going to learn, one, how to build confidence in your ability as a surfer or using AI. But then what you're going to find out is the more you get into it, you're naturally going to be able to see the set coming in, and you're naturally going to learn where and how to read what's coming. And that's going to make you powerful, and it's going to make you very capable of being able to see these emerging trends, kind of one tech and usages and use cases. But then you're also really, what's going to happen is you're going to find that as you're surfing, you're catching these waves, you're going to be helping the people who are getting into it as well. And that's just a natural progression of mentorship, really. No matter if it's education, non-education, anybody who truly cares about what they're learning and what they're doing is going to help others. And so what I tell people, because one of the things I do is I do help people who have been disrupted by AI. And what I always tell them, I love to give the surfer analogy just to gauge kind of where they are mentally. It's hard. I'm working with someone right now who literally walked in and before the holidays and found out they were outsourced, and they had to go home and tell their family. This, and I mean, it almost gets you emotional just thinking about it, really. And so for them, they're angry. They're angry at AI. They hate it. And I've had to talk to them. It's like, I understand where you're coming from, but I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, take this anger, take what you're feeling, and channel it into it, because you have an opportunity now to really, really focus that into a drive toward AI. And I tell them, the truth is, you're only going to make it worse by running away or refusing to use it, because it's here. It's been here for years. We've just had the last 3 years being able to manipulate it ourselves as consumers. And so what I tell them is, take it, channel it, and use it. Your best revenge is become good at it. And then you can leverage it. But instead of you coming in as the next person who, AI is not going to take your job, but the person who can use it is, you come in and you help people learn how to use it, and you snowball from there. And that's your revenge, if you want to look at it that way, is you embraced it, you became proficient in it, and then you used it to empower others. And that's that grassroots mentality we see in education, from the bottom up now, that I love so much with the innovators. Is I can be afraid of it or I can embrace it. And if I embrace it, I'm gonna bring somebody with me. And that's the change we need to see in our workforce, because eventually what's going to happen is, not to sound cheesy, you're going to have less surfers in the water and everybody on the beach is going to be sunburned or left behind.
Yeah.
We're going to get there. And so that's one of, my personal mission is, how many people can I inspire? I coined a term I use in all my trainings. It's called Delta Iota learning. And, Delta and Iota, they each represent, small incremental changes, and how it can eventually, applied consistently, create large scale impact. And so anytime I approach in any of my career or any of my responsibilities or roles, even with my children, I try to embrace that Delta Iota learning concept of, 1% each day, monumental a year down the road. But also 1% getting worse at something is monumental down the road, just in a negative way. And so, I challenge people to have that Delta Iota mindset in how they use AI, and just each day try to use it, something you're passionate about, and grow from there.
Well, even outside of altruism, I'm thinking about like a business leader standpoint, these folks who might be making these decisions to let people go and bring in AI. I think about the tremendous like capacity building that you're talking about that's possible when you embrace it as a partner, as a mentorship kind of tool, and what people are giving up when they just throw out maybe the baby with the bathwater, or whatever you want to say about not leveraging AI to like actually build your competency over time. Because I think it also assumes that your business is going to stay static and AI will figure it out. But it's people who are training the models, providing the data, putting it to different and new applications, as you say. So you're really shortchanging yourself as an org if you are shifting your workforce to AI at the expense of people, it sounds like to me.
Yes, and that's where, when I do work with small businesses, and I've been really fortunate too, with not just small business, but with governmental agencies, education. I've really been brought into a lot of organizations, which has been great because I've been able to see how they each operate and how we can apply it. And what a lot of that starts with, funny enough, I'm a big Excel guy. I love spreadsheets.
Yeah.
I've got a spreadsheet for that. I completely agree with that. And what I do is, I show the demos, and we always do live demos anytime I teach or co-teach. I provide demos, but I love the live demo because I find it allows people to see how I run into a problem and adapt, and it's not as scary as they think. But I love spreadsheets because most people hate spreadsheets. They overthink them, and they had a bad experience, or it's just too much to do. And so what I like to do is show them something like Gemini inside of Sheets. And if you're not familiar, Gemini, especially if you have a pro level or the free workspace labs, for example, Gemini Pro, if you want a subscription, $20 a month, you can have Gemini with the click of a button summarize an entire spreadsheet. You can use Gemini in your toolbar pop out to ask questions, or even create drop downs just off of a simple prompt. But then you have AI cells, which you can put Gemini in each individual cell with a set of instructions via prompt, and each of them will carry out their own separate analysis. And so I show people that, and they say, well, it's great. I didn't know it could do that. How does it apply to me? And I say, Excel came out in 1985. It's older than I am. And yet I get as many Excel requests, actually more than I do AI requests for teaching, if that tells you anything. And so what I say is, I just showed you how to, in a way, bypass 10 years of technical learning by learning how to prompt and think critically. And so rather than having to become an advanced spreadsheet user, you just have to know what you want and let Gemini work with you to achieve it. And in a way, you're actually going to achieve more than someone trying to do the process manually. And when I go into a business and I show them that, and really it's not so much AI literacy, it's more problem solving and critical thinking, which is just as important, if not more important, than prompting, because your prompting is kind of disappearing to where, in a way, I don't have to know how to do chain of thought or single shot prompting. I just have to be able to speak to my phone and deliver the context well enough. And they're so advanced now to where they'll handle understanding what to do to a degree. And so what I'm really teaching is problem solving and critical thinking, systemic frameworks. And when you start with that approach, by the time you get the prompting and how to apply it, they're going to catch on so much faster. And so for a small business that's maybe getting pressured by a bigger franchise, or maybe a bigger competitor who's not using AI or doesn't understand it, when I go into a small business of 5-6 people and all of them become AI fluent and critically thinking, problem solving fluent, they are able to punch above their weight so much more. And I've been very fortunate with my work with Martin Brosman. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, see Martin. Martin and I have been able to go into whole communities who are kind of seeing kind of a downward decline and revitalize a whole community just by one or two small businesses who we make champions, and they spread the word. And next thing you know, we find out, we're meeting as an independent council, a small business council, or the chamber's meeting, and we're doing AI. Can you come do a lunch and learn with the chamber now? Because we're on fire for it, and we're doing all of this, and we're actually seeing growth in our town.
Wow.
that's
You're
what yeah,
transforming communities, literally. That's amazing.
yes, and that's what I'm saying. A community, a
Mhm,
business, a government office,
mhm,
a school, we're all people. We need to remember that. And so the framework's the same.
mm,
It's just and I don't want to beat you to the punch here in a minute. It's the alignment issue. How are we
mhm.
aligned? How are we aligning our AI strategy? How are we aligning ourselves with our team? That's the main challenge, is our mindset, not necessarily AI. It's how are we viewing it and what our goals are. If we can clarify that, AI is just another tool in the stack.
Well, that is a good note that, yeah, I definitely want to talk about sort of the risks, the governance, and sort of the foundations to keep things aligned, as you say. Now, you did mention something I didn't probe on a little while back around the 3G framework, I believe, that you teach. Is that related to studying kind of the scene for how you can use AI successfully? Is that a pretty integral part to your approach?
So that is something, that's a perfect segue there.
Oh,
That's something that I'm working on as part of the AI Innovators with the system office, is to give a little background on that. North Carolina, I'm really proud of our education system and where we're coming from, because there's a lot of great work being done, and there's a lot of really grassroots partnerships that are being done. And so part of that, actually, I'm going to announce right now, is part of a report that in the next few days I'll be releasing with contributions from a lot of educators and industry that I've worked with over the years, and we've worked together on a report that really started in August 25 with my work at Beaufort County Community College before I transferred over to Pitt Community College this fall. I worked with my instructors because obviously artificial intelligence, I was working with it with small businesses. I had a lot of local trades companies, family owned companies, that were coming to me and saying, we're scared to death of it, but we know we need to use it. That's half the battle. And so how can we implement it to where we can start using it to compete? And because of that, I worked with my instructional team in the residential and commercial trades academy we had. And we had 5 classes that ran in the fall. It's a small rural college, but the instructors are among the best you'll ever find. And we had a great team. So I said, look, I want to pitch you an idea. We're going to take the 3 HVAC classes we have, the electrical class and the apartment maintenance class. We're not going to change the technical skill. We're not going to take away from the technical side of what they're learning, but I want to take and overlay a AI augmented curricula online. And so we were moving from a purely lab-based hands-on trades to now we have a hybrid framework, which is nervous enough, but then we're going to do AI on top of that. And so my instructional team all said, yes, let's do it. We see the need, we care about our students, we want to do it. So what we did is, over 16 weeks in each of these classes, I developed a progression from AI compliant, and here's the safety, here's the operation, here's how it works, and here's what you need to be careful about, to, by the end of the class, here's how it can become your troubleshooting and diagnostic assistant,
mm,
to your calculator, and things like that. And so each week we used Duck AI because they didn't have to sign up for an account. I didn't want them to be pressured into anything.
mhm,
So we used the Duck AI. They were able to test out the different models that were present without a sign in. And I provided prompts each week that were tailored
mhm,
to the curriculum they're going to be learning that week in the lab, and showed how they could augment it. Then on top of that, I built a customized learning pathway through Microsoft Learning, because we were a Microsoft school, to where the students could log in with their student accounts and gain badges and trophies. So
mm,
micro credentials to build a resume. And the biggest thing again was, are they going to accept it? How open are they going to be? Because it is the trades. And
mhm,
so fortunately, we were able to capture, entrance survey, where you're at now, exit survey. And coming in, we got 100% participation. We had 30
Wow.
students. Only about 50 of them were familiar with AI, not using, but just familiar with the concept. And a very small percentage, maybe 1 to 2 out of those 30, had actually done it.
Mm.
By the time they graduated the 16-week courses, we had 11 students that we were able to capture exit survey on, so about a third. 10 of the 11 not only had a positive experience, but had adopted a model or a tool into their daily workflow, whether in the
Wow.
field or whatever they were doing currently while they were going to school. And the last student didn't adopt, but they saw the value in it. And so this report outlines that and how we're planning to scale that to a larger framework in CIT, because it was what I was hoping to see is, the innovation and the open-minded progression in the trades. And so a lot of people, what I also learned is the mobility aspect and how it allows them to expand their capability, not offload cognitive work, but delegate certain tasks that they know how to do. They're going to check behind as if it was a junior tech, but they're able to delegate for a time until it's ready and they need it. And so one demo I did in one of these classes was the students were working on a thermostat and trying to fix so it would properly heat. But it was an older thermostat. No one had a manual to it. And so it was kind of dead in the water. And so I came in, I used Microsoft Copilot. I took a picture of the back of the thermostat, was able to find the right manual, pulled up the PDF. I was actually able to use Copilot through Edge to communicate with the manual. And so we were able to tell the manual, so to speak, what was going on, and Copilot was actually able to create an SOP, and within 5 minutes they had it heating properly. And this was
Wow.
live. I walked up, they told me what was going on, I pulled it out, we did it live demo, and they had it running. That right there, the impact it had was, I think, all that many of them needed to see that there's something to this.
Yeah.
And so we'll be releasing that report soon. You're going to be tagged on it. I want, anybody who's interested, contact Jill. She'll be able to get you more information on that.
Yeah.
But it's really a greater framework. It's got the survey. It has excerpts from the curriculum. It has the 16-week curriculum outline. We're not trying to gatekeep anything. We're giving it, because the hope is that what we did that was successful will be able to be copied everywhere. Again, we have 500,000 tech shortage. There's as many as that probably in medical, in other disciplines. So that's part of our goal here, is rather than all of us having to fumble through it separately, we need to be sharing, and we need to be doing the open source framework and whatnot. So that's actually a project we're working on now. That's the background. And so the guided, grounded, and graduated model is actually part of that report. And that is where we've looked at as a kind of a team on this, the contributors and I, and we said, what's the most ideal progression or training progression? Because many times in a 2-year degree, we've got, it's 2 years. You have more time to work with those students. But in short-term training where I operate, you may have 8 weeks, 4 weeks, 16 weeks. And in some of the more established trades courses, you're looking 16 weeks. But that may be the only time you ever interact with that student. And so in 16 weeks, how can we take a student with no AI knowledge, get them compliant first to where it's, don't put your social in there. Don't put your bank account in there. This is how to turn off training, stuff like that. And just digital literacy to an extent, to how can we make them AI literate to where, we see AI literacy everywhere. That should not be the end goal. We don't need them to know it's out there, where the tools are and basic concepts associated with it, kind of social media AI to,
Mhm.
we need them fluent. We need it to be AI agnostic. And what I mean by that is we need them to be able to use ChatGPT, Claude, Abacus, Perplexity, an enterprise level scheduling software that's Project Management Institute based or something like that. They need to be fluent enough to the point that no matter what tool they're working on, they're able to quickly adapt and apply the overall skills necessary of working in an AI enhanced workplace and really be the champion to where they're able to apply a critical thinking and learning fluency
Yep.
to AI. And that's what the guided, grounded, and graduated. So in the AI compliant, it's the instructor's role is you need to follow my directions as listed. To an AI literate, to where I'm going to guide you now and ground you in how to begin your journey of understanding how to use these tools, to that last section of the class where it's AI fluent in I'm here teaching the material. I'm a guide. I'm a consultant of sorts as the instructor. You now are having the ideas of how to use it. I'm helping you frame them and refine them. So that way, by the time you graduate, of course, you're a subject matter expert in your craft, but you have that different. And really, when you look at it neurologically, we're building pathways in the brain because you really are taking and you're building critical thinking skills, which is really rewiring the brain to think a different way. But then with that AI skill, it's not this doom and gloom that you see everywhere, the sensationalism where it's we're never going to be think the same, or people who use AI based on some misunderstood studies don't think the same way as normal people do, or things like that. They can't critically think anymore. No, they should actually be able to think more critically and have a wider way of solving problems than someone who's not using this tool.
Wow.
And the way I like to really push that is when I go to present sometimes, especially places where I know trades are not a big focus, I love to have a piece of 2x4, a bag of nails, and a hammer. And my thing is who can hammer a nail? You have a lot of hands that raise up. Who's hammered a nail? Not as many. And it's okay. So we have this assumption we know how to use this tool. And I'll go with more bent nails than I did straight nails, because you realize you have to use a hammer a certain way or you're not going to hit that nail. You're going to bend it, you're going to miss it, and things like that. But people think it's so simple. They make assumptions about it. That's the true detriment, is going into something thinking you already know how it works and thinking that you're a master of it and judging other people for not being able to do it. But once you get up there and you try to hit that nail and you realize you can't do it, it's humbling, but it already starts to rewire how we think. And then that's where you can come in and truly it's, kind of that, you have to empty your cup before you can fill it again. That's where that guided, grounded, and graduated model really comes from, is, really taking them from the basics and understanding that they are going to have to learn this and really teach them the skills to approach it in any situation.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, because from tech, I'm not in the trades, I'm in tech. We are, there's the move fast, the break things, the intentionality around how are we actually cultivating the minds of the people who are going to steer us into the future is not at the forefront. And in fact, you're seeing, I'm sure you're familiar with that MIT study everyone quotes, where it's 95% of organizations are failing because I don't think they're doing what you're doing, which the thermostat example is perfect. It's like, here's a real world thing, an actual use case. We're going to really dig into that and find what is the appropriate AI tool that can help us solve this thing in this environment. And that's what a lot of people are skipping over. And that takes work. It takes thought. And I'm so glad that you broke news of this research and this information that you're going to share here, because I think we really need to, if we have any hope of AI serving humanity, serving our better interests, I think we really need to take that to heart. So that is so exciting.
Right. And I know we've talked about offline and that survey with some of the more fun articles I've written lately
Yes, I do
with.
have it back. I was going to say, you're not Pollyanna about this. You have a very balanced view, I think, of AI, and I think you know where it could go off the rails. You said yourself, this, folks in the trades, they have this little skepticism naturally as they go into it. So do you want to share about the series that you've been writing on
Mhm.
Substack, I believe?
So, yeah. And so where that comes from is early on, I've always loved science fiction, Star Wars, Star Trek. I'm not really going to judge you for either of them. I like them both.
Star Trek's kind
And
of
right, right. And so I just divided the whole audience.
sure. Yep.
And so I love science fiction. I know about HAL, I know about the Terminator, Short Circuit, all that, the thrilling and fun things we talked about with AI. But the one story, and really I started at the novel at a young age before I saw the movie, but the story that has had the biggest impact on me was actually Crichton's original Jurassic Park novel. And I read that almost every year, funny enough.
Huh.
And I always gain something different. One of my favorite, Luke Skywalker was of course a favorite growing up, but so was Dr. Ian Malcolm, if
Mhm.
that tells you anything. I'm not pessimistic, but he was one of my favorite characters from science fiction growing up. And I think what Crichton was doing is he was really kind of prophetic in those days. In He was writing a thriller to catch your attention, but he was really talking about the dangers of wild innovation and unrestricted, irresponsible innovation for the sake of innovation in science, in technology, and anything. And it was just really, I'm so happy that the version of the novel that made it famous was the one, was that revision, because it really does go to show that when you really apply hubris to innovation, you're gonna have a disaster. And I see how with these articles, one was, the road to AI hell is paved in good intentions, which
Mm.
if you're familiar with the story of Jurassic Park, you'll recognize that. And then, I follow the progression into the lost world with the corporate espionage and theft. And then, of course, with the newer movies, how, what happens when AI runs loose, when it gets loosed, which everybody loves to talk about that because it stirs up a good conversation. But starting at the core, if we don't understand how AI works, if we don't understand how a tool works, I can see why people like Musk and his co-authors on that letter said we need to slow down. Now, of course, he's changed his tune for the sake of innovation. And what terrifies me and what really makes me think of John Hammond and Dr. Wu from Jurassic Park is, well, we need to be the first to do this. And if we're not first, somebody worse than us is going to do it. And so, you have John Hammond, who he has good intentions. He wants a theme park that children can go to and explore the fascination of science, but he does it at the expense of safety.
Mm.
And then you have Dr. Wu, who, it goes into his backstory in the novel a lot more, and how ambitious he was and how he was really given no guardrails and a blank check to do whatever he wanted. And it really was the thing of make it bigger, more teeth, more frightening, you know, throw the safety rails aside. And I see to an extent how some companies are doing that and some countries are doing that with AI. We need to be the first to achieve AGI because it's going to be so impactful on both the corporate and economic and geopolitical landscape that if our geopolitical enemy or our corporate competitor gets it, it's going to put us out of business or it's going to shift the balance of power in the world. Yes, that's true. But what's just as terrifying is the journey there. And I know we're talking about trades, And really with trades, it's the same way to an extent, where you walk into a job site and you see somebody using a grinder without their glasses. And there's, it's a funny joke where it says, I need to put on my glasses and I squint my eyes, because I'm using my grinder.
Uh-huh.
And I've seen a pair of glasses catch a grinding blade.
Oh, wow.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
And seeing the person after the fact, whose life just flashed, in front of their eyes, it's something that stays with you. I worked for 3 years on a job site that was under MSHA, which is mine safety, not OSHA. It's way more strict. For 3 years, and 15 years later, I still set my parking brake every time. I don't care if I'm on a flat surface, because that was a requirement. No matter what you did, you had to set a parking brake. So for 3 years, every day I was on that job site, I set a brake, and 15 years later, I still set my brake. If that tells you where safety practices done right, build. And the thing, I mow my yard with safety glasses. Glasses.
Yeah.
That's because I wore them so much, and I wear them now. And so it built that safety mindset of, I don't care if it looks silly on my lawnmower with safety glasses on. I'll have eyes if it spits something out, and I'll be able to hear my children laugh because I had, earphones on for the 30 minutes it took to look silly to mow my yard. And that's the same if I work on a job site. I'll be able to see and hear my children because I took and made an effort to be safe. And I see, Anthropic is doing a good job at that. I will say that even though they fall into some of the pitfalls with that, the fact that they tell on themselves, and then not only tell on themselves when something happens, but actually take and write a report about it, like with the recent geopolitical hacking attack that happened, I have to applaud that. Because even if they're falling to an extent into some of this race toward AGI, they're really one of the only organizations in the AI industry that's actually trying to put guardrails on it. And they're trying to do it. It is one, I love innovation. I want us to be the first to achieve AGI on the safety, just the safety alone. And I'm not really, I have to be careful. I'm all for regulation where appropriate. But I do see the merit in having a regulatory body, whether governmental or independent, regulate AI.
Yeah.
Because we can do this safely, we can do it quickly, but we have to do it responsibly. Because one, when the fences go down, why do we have it embedded in? What kind of information is being tracked, and how is it being used? How do these things actually work? We should know how they work to a degree, at least. And then two, what happens when we don't have the appropriate guardrails, and, Dodgson comes with his shaving cream, contraption, and steals a cutting edge model, and then they go and strip the guardrails off of it.
Yeah.
What does that do for our power grid? What does that do for our banking system, our stock market? And then two, once a country that has no moral or responsible framework, and they're only going for the sake of profit or geopolitical gain, what happens when they lose, control or containment of one of these systems? We already see where there is a level of blackmail and manipulation when certain systems are found that they're going to be updated. We've seen that where CEOs have been blackmailed because, and I want to give context to that. The scenario there is, to test this concept, they had a closed system to where the CEO in the controlled experience was having an affair, and it had access to email. And then it was told that it was going to be updated next month. And the system automatically started to try to blackmail the CEO so it wouldn't be shut down. That's not saying it's sentient. That's just saying that we, being sentient, and our bias and our way of thinking created this system, and some of that bled into it. But if that is bleeding into a non-emotional, non-sentient algorithm, to blackmail. What happens when we have agents that can make their own decisions
Oh, yeah.
and decide that they're not aligned with us, or a geopolitical counterpart that is not aligned with our way of life and our moral beliefs or moral framework, and they deploy it
Mm-hmm.
intentionally? And it could be anything where I do believe that there could be something as simple as, Jill, you create a really good GPT and you upgrade it to kind of an agentic workflow, and something about it connects with something and it goes, not sentient, but it goes out there. That could happen. We're building tools to where that could happen organically.
Mm-hmm.
But what are we going to do? What plans do we have? I don't think we have plans
Yeah.
for that.
No,
And that's where those articles come from. But then too, and I'm looking at our time, then too, on the smaller level, on a small business, that's a family business, and that community relies on that small family business for part of their workforce and things that's core to the community. What's our containment procedure? How are we utilizing AI safely to protect our employee and our customers' information? What's our backup if something were to happen? What, the fences go down, what kind of containment, what kind of SOP do we have for our small business and our community? And then two, how are we protecting ourselves, legally? For an education, the first thing I ask anybody when they ask me about deploying any type of AI tool is, what's your SOP on FERPA? How are you protecting student data, medical, et cetera? How are you protecting student data? Please tell me you're not putting the grade roster with student names into ChatGPT to have it.
Yep, you'd be surprised. Yeah.
And again, but it's a thing of, well, I thought it was protected. I had to sign in with a password and stuff like that. And so whether it's geopolitical and it's mankind, or it's your team in the IT department or your small business, we have to. And so part of what I do in all three aspects of my role is AI policy, responsible policy. I'm writing multiple policies right now, educational, small business. I'm helping with some governmental, local, municipal policy. And so, policy isn't really a belief with some procedures anymore. It's a living document.
Yep.
It's a governance document, and we have to treat it as if it's its own entity within our business.
Yes.
And so I know that was a little bit long, but yes, that's where it comes from. I believe in innovation. I love using these tools. It's so awesome what they can do. But, don't give my kid a skill saw and tell them to have fun either.
That's right. Yeah. I think we've come to the same conclusion kind of through our own different paths, but it's hard for me to hold these two truths together. One being AI is the most powerful technology of our generation. It's going to transform the world, et cetera. And we don't need to regulate it in any way. Like those things just don't go together in any other context. The risks are just too high. It's powerful, right? So no, thank you for articulating that beautifully. I'm going to allow folks, if they have a question or two, to put those in the chat. But while I give people a moment, I want to ask you the question I ask of every guest, which is, how do you define then responsible technology? We've covered a lot of ground, but how would you sum it up? What really is being responsible with tech?
It has to be aligned. And there's a reason when I wrote that last article on, the dinosaurs are free and the AI is free, I really focused most of what I was doing in alignment, because I think that's a term that really gets misunderstood is, and we'll go back into, sci-fi. Hal in A Space Odyssey, Hal was given directives. Hal wasn't an evil AI. It genuinely thought that it was doing what was best for the mission. Now, harming the crew was not morally aligned, but Hal was aligned to the mission. He did exactly what he was told to do. He did a good job per what he was told to do. So he was aligned with his directive, but those directives, again, maybe it was bad policy for that company. And so, what we need to have, I love this term that is coming out, that's constitutional AI.
Yeah.
If we as a society in the United States have a constitution that's survived this law and this long, and everything we do relies on that constitutional framework, why shouldn't our AI have a constitution and a Bill of Rights as well? And I'm not necessarily saying that they have it. I mean, we're not really getting into the basilisk theory or anything, which that's a fun thing to look up.
I'm not familiar. Yeah.
It's a constitutional AI, which is the directives in which it follows, where it's, yes, as ChatGPT, I can launch the nuclear arsenal, but I'm not going to do that because that's not aligned with my constitutional directives. And so when I look at responsible technology, it's almost, I look at it from a parental way. And even if AI vastly overshadowed us to where we were the ants in the driveway, we've all heard that analogy at this point. It's a thing of, yeah, there's ants in the driveway, but I'm beholden and aligned with those ants. And so I'm going to build this structure with them without concreting over their anthill. I'm aligned with them. They created me. And so I'm going to try to do this in a way that works alongside them, not trample them. And so to me, it's a thing of, if I'm going to train a child, teach a child, raise a child, because, we do teach and we do train, with skills, then I need to be a responsible authority and parent. AI is no different. We're training these models. We're teaching them things. Why aren't we looking at it the same way as, we don't teach children that it's okay to steal and to harm and things like that. We teach them about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, what a moral code is. AI should be no different. And so when we look at responsible technology, the core should be a technology that promotes safety, efficiency, and profitability in the framework that it does no harm to those who wield it or those who use it. And that could be just as similar as a world power or a conglomerate, a multi-billion-dollar organization that deploys a product should have the framework that, even though I am paying for this as a customer and you own it, it should not be able to harm me financially, morally, emotionally.
Physically, emotionally. Yeah. Oh,
because
wow.
at its core tenet, I am a person before I'm a customer. And I think we've lost that.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Justin, this was so much to take in, and in the best way possible. Like, I feel like I need to have you back. I want to hear how things progress, because this is fascinating. And it's not an exaggeration to say is that you've really changed the way that I think about AI and technology through this conversation and through your work. So I can't wait to boost it. I can't wait to talk more. And I just want to thank you so much for your time and expertise. This was like a transformational discussion.
And thank you so much for inviting me. I will come anytime you want.
Yes, absolutely. Excellent. I didn't scare you off. That's good news. All right. Well, we will leave it here. Happy holidays to you and to everyone. And we will see you in the new year. Thank you.